You sure don't you?
All right, good morning, everybody. The meeting of the Escambia County Planning Board for December the 2nd, 2025 is hereby called to order with 7 members present. We do have a quorum. Just a reminder to put your cell phones on silent or turn them off while we're in the meeting. And if you would, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Right. Do we have proof of publication?
Yes, sir.
Did the publication meet all legal requirements?
Yes, sir.
I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading of the legal advertisement.
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries. The rezoning meeting minutes from the previous meeting dated November the 4th, 2025 have been provided to the board. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections? And if not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion.
Motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries. The rezoning hearing package for December 2nd, 2025 with findings of fact have been provided to the board members. I'll entertain a motion to accept the rezoning hearing package with findings of fact and legal advertisement into evidence. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
We got a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second. Second.
All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Okay, motion carries. Will the court reporter please swear in members of staff?
Everyone raise your right hand. Solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
All right. And the board has previously qualified staff to offer expert testimony in the area of land use and planning. Does anyone on the board have questions regarding their qualifications and ability to offer expert testimony? All right, seeing none. At this hearing, the planning board is acting under its authority to hear and make recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners, the BCC, on rezoning applications. These hearings are quasi-judicial in nature, and these hearings are like evidentiary hearings in a court of law, however less formal. All testimony will be given under oath, and anyone testifying before the planning board may be subject to cross-examination. All documents and exhibits that the planning board considers will be entered into evidence and made part of the record. Opinion testimony will be limited to experts, and closing arguments will be limited to the evidence in the record. Before making our decision, the planning board will consider the relevant testimony, exhibits entered into evidence, and the applicable law. Each individual who wishes to address the planning board must complete a speaker request form and submit it to the planning clerk. These forms are on the table in the back of the room, and you will not be allowed to speak and present and give testimony on the record at this hearing before the planning board. Sorry, if you don't speak today at this meeting, after filling out a form, you will not be able to speak at the Board of County Commissioners hearing for its final approval or denial. No new evidence can be presented at the BCC meeting. Therefore, all testimony and evidence must be presented here today. The planning board will provide a recommendation for each rezoning request. The BCC, which will review testimony, documents, and exhibits, consider the closing arguments, and make a final decision. All decisions by the BCC are final, and anyone who wishes to seek judicial review of the decision of the BCC must do so in a court of competent jurisdiction within 30 days of the date the BCC approves or rejects the recommended order of the planning board. All written or oral communications outside of this hearing with the members of the planning board regarding matters under consideration today are considered ex parte communication. Ex parte communications are presumed prejudicial under Florida law and must be disclosed as provided in BCC Resolution number 96-13. As each case is heard, I will ask that any board member who has been involved in any ex parte communication to please identify themselves and describe the communication. As required by Section 2-7.2 of the Escambia County Land Development Code, the Planning Board's recommendation to the BCC shall include consideration of the following approval conditions. The applicant has the burden of presenting competent substantial evidence to the reviewing board establishing that the requested rezoning district would contribute to or result in a logical and orderly development pattern. The appropriate surrounding area within which uses and conditions must be considered may vary with those uses and conditions and is not necessarily the same area required for mailed notification. A logical and orderly pattern shall require demonstration of each of the following conditions. A, consistent with the comprehensive plan, the proposed zoning is consistent with the FLU category as prescribed in LDC Chapter 3 and with all other applicable goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan. If rezoning is required to properly enact a proposed FLU map transmitted for state agency review, the proposed zoning is consistent with the proposed FLU and conditional to its adoption. B, consistent with zoning district provisions. Proposed zoning is consistent with the purpose and intent and with any other zoning establishment provisions prescribed by the proposed district in Chapter 3. Compatible with surroundings. All the permitted uses of the proposed zoning, not just those anticipated by the rezoning applicant, are compatible, as defined in Chapter 6. With the surrounding uses, the uses of any surrounding undeveloped land shall be considered the permitted uses of the applicable district. Compatibility is not considered with potential conditional uses or with any non-conforming or unapproved uses. Also, in establishing the compatibility of a residential use, there is no additional burden to demonstrate the compatibility of specific residents or activities protected by fair housing laws. D, appropriate if spot zoning, where the proposed zoning would establish or reinforce a condition of spot zoning as defined in Chapter 6. The isolated district would nevertheless be transitional in character between the adjoining districts, or the differences with those districts would be minor or sufficiently limited. The extent of these mitigating characteristics or conditions demonstrates an appropriate site-specific balancing of interests between the isolated district and the adjoining lands. Appropriate with changed or changing conditions, if the land uses or development conditions within the area surrounding the property of rezoning have changed, the changes are to such a degree in character that it is in the public interest to allow new uses, densities, and intensities in the area through rezoning. And the permitted uses of the proposed district are appropriate and not premature for the area or likely to create or contribute to sprawl. At the beginning of each case, as long as we have no objections from the applicant, we'll allow staff to briefly present photos and aerials of the property. Next, we'll hear from the applicant and any witnesses they may wish to call. And after that, we'll hear from staff and any witnesses they may wish to call. And then we'll hear from members of the public who have filled out a speaker request form. We have two cases to be heard today. We have the rezoning application for consideration, case Z-2025-10, a request rezoning 362 West Oakville Road, 300 block West Oakville Road, and 227 Kenmore Road from HDMU, High Density Mixed Use District, 25 dwelling units per acre, to HCLI, Heavy Commercial and Light Industrial District, 25 dwelling units per acre, as requested by Meredith Bush, the agent for Roy Lister and 4 Star Drywall, Inc., the owners. Members of the board, have there been any ex parte communications between you, the applicant, or the applicant's agents, attorney, or witnesses with fellow planning board members or anyone from the general public prior to this hearing? Have you visited the subject property? And then also please disclose if you are a relative or business associate of the applicant or the applicant's agent.
No to all.
No to all.
No to all.
No to all?
No to all.
No to all.
No to all.
All right. Staff was notice of the hearing sent to interested parties
Yes, sir.
and was notice of the hearing posted on the subject property.
Yes, sir.
And Meredith, are you good with us going through the photos? Okay, great. Staff will go ahead and have you go through the maps and photography.
Good morning, Allison Lindsay, Development Services. So this is Z-2025-10. This is the location map showing the parcels outlined in red. This is the 500-foot radius zoning map showing the current HDMU and the surrounding. This is the future land use map showing the future land use is mixed-use urban. This is the existing future land use showing the residents and the businesses that are in the area. This is the aerial map of the sites. And this is the public hearing sign that was posted along Kenmore. This is another sign on Kenmore. And this is looking east along Kenmore Road. And then this is looking west along Kenmore. This is looking south onto one of the sites from Kenmore Road. Looking south onto the site from Kenmore. Looking north across Kenmore Road from the site. And this is looking north across Kenmore. This is the public hearing sign that was posted on West Oakfield Road. This is another hearing sign that's on West Oakfield. This is looking east along West Oakfield. This is looking west along West Oakfield. Looking north onto the site from Oakfield. This is another photo of the site on Oakfield. Looking north onto the site from West Oakfield. And looking south across West Oakfield Road from the site. This is looking south across West Oakfield, and that's the maps and photography.
All right, thank you so much. I've never heard anybody have fun in here before, so that's great stuff. All right, would the applicant, Meredith, will you please come forward, and do you have any witnesses you need to swear in?
No, I don't believe so.
All right, if you'll state your name and address for the record.
Meredith Bush, 314 South Bayland, Suite 108, Pensacola, Florida, 32502.
All right, and did you receive a copy of the rezoning hearing package with the findings of fact? And understand that you have the burden of providing by substantial competent evidence that the proposed rezoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan, furthers the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan, and is not in conflict with any portion of the county's land development code. All right, you're good to go.
Thank you, members of the board. So you may recall we were here last month on this rezoning application, at which point in time there had been an issue with the sign being posted. However, during that meeting, one of the board members raised some concerns regarding the HCLI designation. And so we subsequently met with county officials, county planning staff, Mr. Jones, and the planner, and have prepared an amended request and submittal reducing our ask from the heavy commercial light industrial to commercial. That was provided to the county. However, I understand they had already published or sent out the HCLI packet. So at this time, I would ask that you would accept into evidence our amended commercial request, and I would go through those findings.
Okay, we've got a motion to accept.
Second.
Second, is there any discussion on the motion? Any questions? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? All right.
Thank you. In the staff findings presented related to the HCLI throughout the staff's findings, the county suggests and recommends that we reduce the ask to commercial. So having said that, and that being the basis for the change, number one, whether or not it's consistent with the comprehensive plan, the proposed amendment to commercial is consistent with the intent and purpose of the existing future land use category of mixed use urban. MUU permits commercial zoning and encourages redevelopment of underutilized parcels in built urban areas. The request advances policies encouraging infill, compact development, and employment supporting uses near the US 29 and North Palafox arterial corridors. COM implements the MUU category by allowing a mix of commercial and light intensity non-residential uses compatible with the adjoining mixed use and existing industrial activity. Number two, consistent with zoning district provisions. The proposed amendment to commercial is consistent with the intent and purpose of the Land Development Code. The proposed COM zoning is consistent with the stated purpose of the district to allow retail, service, office, and like commercial activities while requiring all operations to be interiorized, so within the confines of a building, to maintain compatibility with the surrounding uses. The site's location between HDMU and HCLI districts and the history of commercial use are fully aligned with the purpose of COM as a transitional zoning category. Number 3, compatible with surroundings. The proposed amendment is compatible with surrounding existing uses in the area. The property is adjacent to heavy commercial, light industrial, and high-density mixed-use zoning. Existing land uses include residential, neighborhood commercial, and HCLI intensity commercial service operations. The subject property has operated commercially for over 40 years, demonstrating its ability to coexist with the surrounding neighborhood without material adverse impacts. COM zoning strengthens compatibility by imposing interior operation requirements, buffering and performance standards that ensure long-term coexistence. Number 4, appropriate if spot zoning. Under staff's analysis, commercial would constitute a technical instance of spot zoning, but commercial is less intense than the HCLI and serves as an appropriate transitional district between HDMU residences and the nearby HCLI uses. Mitigating conditions include mandatory buffering and, again, interior commercial operations, ensure an appropriate balancing of interests and a logical, orderly development pattern. The amendment would be transitional in character between the adjoining districts. The property is directly adjacent to existing HCLI and in close proximity to other properties zoned HCLI. And then number 5, appropriate with changed or changing conditions. Based on existing uses and intensities and the zoning district allowances, the proposed amendment would not create urban sprawl and would be compatible with existing development. It's in the public interest to allow commercial zoning. The proposed rezoning will contribute to a logical and orderly development pattern. The Oakfield-Kenmore corridor has undergone incremental commercial service development over several decades. The existing pattern of mixed residential and commercial and light industrial uses constitutes a changed condition over time, warranting formal recognition through commercial zoning. The rezoning directs redevelopment to a location already equipped with infrastructure and access to the arterial network, preventing sprawl and supporting public policy goals and reinvestment in urban corridors. And then because rezoning to commercial is subject to the same location criteria as any new non-residential use, we have provided a compatibility analysis which meets the locational criteria under section 3-2.10E5 of documented compatibility. I won't read the whole compatibility analysis to you, but that has been accepted into evidence and goes through the established commercial pattern in the area, the fact that the properties have operated as 4-star drywall for about 4 decades, that it is a transitional location between the HDMU and HCLI. Again, the corridor conditions and transportation network and ability to achieve long-term compatibility through design, commercial zoning requiring all operations to be inside the building, limited or restricted outdoor storage, buffering and screening, orientation of service areas away from residential properties, and compliance with the Chapter 5 performance standards regarding noise, lighting, dust, and vibration. The property has not previously been upzoned by the owner, and I'm happy to take any questions. I understand there are a number of citizens here to speak as well.
Okay. Board, are there any questions for the applicant at this time? Nope. All right. Thanks, Meredith. Staff will get you to go ahead and make your presentation.
Yes, so this is the rezoning case Z 2025-10, requesting the rezoning from HDMU to HCLI, but then the amendment to commercial. So the staff findings were for HCLI because we didn't get this prior. So the findings for criteria 1, the proposed amendment to HCLI is consistent with the intent and purpose of the future land use category, mixed-use urban. Mixed-use urban allows residential development and different types of retail sales and services. The commercial future land use the FLU allows retail sales and services as well as residential. In the Chapter 3, the comprehensive plan, the definition of incompatible and compatible, I like to read, is incompatible development is new development proposed to be constructed next to existing development wherein the proximity of the two kinds of development would each diminish the usefulness of the other or would be detrimental to existing operations. The incompatibility would arise from either land use or structure size and design. Compatible development is new development proposed to be constructed next to existing development in which the proximity of the two kinds of development would each complement or enhance the usefulness of the other. Criteria B, consistent with the Land Development Code. The proposed amendment that was requesting the HCLI is not consistent with the intent and purpose of the Land Development Code. The primary intent of this zoning category is to allow for light manufacturing, large-scale wholesale and retail uses, major services, and other more intense uses than allowed in the HDMU district. All new non-residential uses proposed within the heavy commercial, light industrial that are not part of a planned unit development shall be on parcels that satisfy the locational criteria. The subject parcels do not meet the locational criteria as found in Section 3-2.11E of the LDC, nor do the two local roads meet requirements for a local road acting as a collector, as stated in LDC 3-1.62. Both the properties are on local thoroughfares rather than on the arterial or collector roads as required for locational criteria. Adding more commercial activities in the area usually results in heavier traffic, which could overwhelm the current roads and public transportation systems. Oakfield Road primarily accommodates a blend of residential and commercial properties, while Kenmore is predominantly residential. Expanding heavy commercial and light industrial along these two local roads poses risk to the neighborhood's character, potentially altering the community's overall aesthetic. Such growth could lead to an influx of industrial businesses into residential areas, which would negatively impact the adjacent and abutting homes along these roads. HCLI development, even though the block already has some HCLI development and is located near the major arterial, this zoning is not suitable as a transition for HDMU. The continued encroachment of the HCLI into residential streets suggests that commercial zoning would be more appropriate. Commercial zoning serves as a transition between areas zoned or used as high-density mixed use and areas zoned or used as heavy commercial or industrial. The commercial designation allows for a broader range of commercial activities compared to the HDMU, while still maintaining a level of intensity that is lower than the heavy commercial light industrial. And then commercial operations will still be limited to the use inside of a building. The Traffic and Transportation gave comments for this project, and he both stated that both are local roads. There's no bike lane on either roadway, and there's no paved shoulder on either right-of-way, and the street classifications, they're both local roads, and the TTO had no concerns regarding the proposed rezoning. Criteria C, compatible with surrounding uses. The proposed change doesn't fit well with the surrounding properties. The area include lands zoned HDMU and HCLI. The properties in question are zoned HDMU, which allows a mix of residential and neighborhood-type commercial uses. Staff acknowledges that there are HCLI uses in the area. However, increasing the heavy commercial light industrial uses along the two local roads will continue to overwhelm the residential character of this neighborhood and place more intense uses on the residential block. And if you would look at the existing future land use map that I've got up here, you'll notice that the parcels asked for rezoning are in the blue outline, and around it you see single family, commercial, and then over by off of Kenmore, there's a subdivision called the Enchanted Village subdivision, which is all multifamily. So if you look all along Kenmore, it's all single family, maybe mobile homes, and a couple of vacant lots. So criteria D, appropriate with spot zoning. By definition, the proposed amendment would not be considered spot zoning, as there is HCLI zoning adjacent to the subject property, and the recommended commercial would be spot zoning. However, it is less intense for this area. Criteria E, appropriate with changed or changed conditions. The conditions in the area have not changed. The development within the area does have a mix of residential and non-residential uses. However, the HCLI would allow more intense uses to spread further among the residential residents along Kenmore and Oakville. And that's end of staff's findings.
All right, thank you. Board, are there any questions for staff? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to public comment. And for those members of the public who wish to speak on this matter, please note that we base our decision on the approval conditions and exceptions described in Section 2-6.8 of the Land Development Code. And during our deliberations, the Planning Board will not consider general statements of support or opposition. So please try and limit your testimony to the approval conditions and exceptions described in Section 2-6.8. And then just a reminder that if you haven't signed up to speak, if you'd like to speak to the Board of County Commissioners, you will need to speak here today as well. So I've got our first speaker is Melissa Johnson. If you would please come forward, state your name and address for the record and be sworn in, and we'll start your 3 minutes. If you'll state your name and address.
Melissa Johnson, 111 Kenmore Road.
Thank you, and then we'll have you get sworn in.
Yes.
All right. You can go ahead and start.
I'm not, my concern is I'm not in agreement with the rezoning. I'm concerned about my property value going down. The area is already congested with big trucks coming through all every day, loud trucks. The noise, and that particular area is primarily a lot of older residents that's been living there for many, many years. I've been there quite some time myself, but that is my major concern. The property value, there's already loud noise, it's already congested. Thank you.
Thank you. And
Step away from, because you're on the map, show exactly where you live at. We want to see.
Actually, I live where the location, where the house is. If you could put the picture back up there, there's a fence, a black fence. If you've seen the black fence, my house is the next house. So I'm actually closer to the particular lot than anyone else probably is.
Mr. Chair, for the benefit
Whenever she was
of
showing
the,
that east and west, I could show exactly where I live. Okay, stop right there. You see that fence right there, that black fence?
to the right.
yes,
Hey, my house is the next house.
gotcha.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Speaker, for the benefit of this speaker and the rest of them, could I ask staff to maybe explain why you are in agreement with a commercial, and as opposed to HCLI you are against, but the commercial designation does work in your estimation, is that correct?
Let me put it this way. It appears to be, from the requirements of the Land Development Code, a better alternative as a transition zoning. From the black and white language of that section, commercial is a better transition based upon that language. And the fact, and due to the close proximity of the commercial, staff did recognize that fact. Yet, staff does recognize the fact clearly and explicitly that even with commercial, there still are some issues with compatibility. But because of the commercial, that's limited commercial, that's within the area, and the code does recognize commercial as a transition between heavy commercial and HDMU. That's why staff said that could be a better alternative for the planning board to consider, with understanding that compatibility because of the existing land use of the area, and I must say this for the record, I drive that area every single day, going from taking my little grandson to to PHS. So it's honest, I shouldn't do it, but it's a cut through.
So would it be safe, would it be safe to say that the commercial designation gives you the ability to restrict outside storage, outside activity, buffering, and that it would afford, similar to if we were building a house, there's a review process that people would have the opportunity to give input and to hear what they plan on doing and what their buffering plans to be. Is that accurate or not?
That, and at some points you are accurate. Yes, the commercial does allow for more intense, higher performance standards that will be much more protect the citizens. Yet, on the other side, the flip side, is that it does allow for more intense uses as well. But because of the, like you said, the inside uses, plus this is an existing building as well. So those things could help with that issue. But with the intents of the commercial uses, that can still come, that still will have an impact. Everyone knows that when you up zones, you do get more traffic, period. We don't have traffic concurrence, but that is a factor where more people can travel those roads. So compatibility is still an issue, but the commercial zoning is mentioned in the Land Development Code as an alternative, and there are more protections that are in place, but the uses are still a factor as well.
And yes, Mr. Paul, you were correct where the HCLI would allow the outdoor storage and the commercial would not. Now, from what I understand, I think the drywall business is not in operation, so I'm not sure how long it has not been in operation. So if there were any inconsistencies or incompatible uses, you know, they're gone once the business is not in operation. But the main area, if you look at it, yes, one of the parcels is adjacent to HCLI, but for the majority of it is all HDMU.
All right. We'll move on to our next speaker, Beverly Benz. If you'll please state your name and address and for the record and be sworn in.
Beverly Benz, 6052 Arctic Street, Pensacola.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, go ahead and get started.
Well, I'm totally against this rezoning. I bought some property that is on Brosnaham. You have Dick Moises right here, and then the road behind it is Brosnaham. I bought this piece of property for my grandson to build a house there. I own property on Arctic Street where I live, and this is maybe a block away. And as it is now, it takes 20 to 30 minutes to get out of my neighborhood because of the traffic. Then once they put bigger businesses in there, there's going to be more traffic. The school bus stops are going to have to be moved because right now you can walk from the property on Brosnaham to the corner on Palafox, and there is a school bus for high school children, middle school children, and elementary school children. And then at my neighborhood, about a block away, not quite a block, there's more school bus stops for elementary children, middle school, and high school, and adding more. Yeah, this
I
is
think
rezoning.
she's doing the one on Palafox that
Yeah.
was pulled.
I'm just making sure we're on the right.
Yeah,
It was this is the one that's between Kenmore
yeah.
and and Oakfield, but we had another one that was on Palafox near the Dick Moyes. and I think
and
that's the
see,
one you,
Dick Moyes is on Palafox, so I call it Palafox.
but that case was pulled.
Yeah. Oh, it's okay. But if we rezone this, then the property that I bought for him to have a nice home to grow up in a neighborhood with other children, that it's just gonna go away because you're gonna have these big buildings there that's so unnecessary. There's so many other properties that could be rezoned. There's children still play in these streets. And I don't want my grandson not to be able to ride his bike up and down the road because of all the heavy traffic, and God knows what it's going to draw in there. You know, we don't have a problem. Well, we have crime, you know, because we got Tiki Lane right there. But it's going to get worse, and we need to really save these neighborhoods while we can.
This is the case that was being continued. This is Z 2025 number 12, which is the third case for today. So you're speaking on the first case for today. So your comments are relevant to a case that's coming later, but it's actually being continued to another hearing.
Yeah, I'm talking about the rezoning there for Dick Moyes property.
Right.
Yeah.
The Moyes property is going to come in January.
In January?
Yes,
Well, I got the letter for it.
They get the surveys back, so they have
Oh, so they got to resend everything?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's the one that I was talking about, the rezoning of Dick.
They're
the
close to
property,
each other,
Dick
to be
Moyes.
fair.
Justice, yeah.
Ma'am, you're right. The issues are still the same because you did mention Tiki Lane.
Yes.
Tiki Lane is in this area, so
Yes.
so your concerns may be similar on each side. I just want to be clear. She did mention Tiki Lane, and Tiki Lane is in the circle area, so she
And
mentioned
Tiki
that.
Lane, it was so bad with the crack and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, just the rezoning there for Dick Moyes, it would just cause a whole bunch of problems. I mean, we can't get in and out of our neighborhoods, and the kids that walk along there, they really don't. You know, it's just unnecessary.
Yeah.
I mean, I bought that property just for the fact that I remodeled my home on Arctic Street. It's right there. And then I bought the one that's behind Dick Moyes' property for my grandson and his mother. And I don't feel comfortable building another home if it's gonna be rezoned to where, I don't know what they're gonna build there, but it'll be in my front yard. I don't think it's a good idea right now at this point to rezone that area.
Yes, ma'am.
There is so many other properties.
And so will she get another notification for when the case is
Yeah,
actually
for
on
when
the
real one
agenda?
comes up.
Yes,
But I
ma'am.
do want to ask our legal counsel for how we want to do her testimony. Her testimony basically is primarily to a case that's not being addressed at this time. Her concerns may be similar, but I want to preserve and protect the record. And that's my number. So how would, do the planning board need to hear that? I just want to be clear, to preserve the record or what?
It's up to the board how to weigh the evidence. If it's in the same
Come back
vicinity,
in January when y'all do it again.
So I think,
Big deal.
since we were getting testimony not this case that we're voting on here today, but for one that we'll hear in the future, we will, I'll take suggestions from the board, but maybe we just strike this evidence that we've heard here today for this case out of the record and then allow you to come back
Now,
in
it
January.
says December the 2nd on the rezoning.
Right, that's it. So because they didn't get all the
Yeah,
stuff
okay,
back, they had
okay, I
to.
got you.
We just found out they had to push it a month because of that. So,
All
but
right,
it will
I
be
got you
back
now.
and
I'm so sorry. I feel
Oh,
like
no,
I
no,
just
no, no.
wasted
You're
all
good.
y'all's
You're
time for
good.
No reason.
It happens. So,
But thank you for letting me speak anyway.
yes,
For the record, and
we'll see you again.
For the record, I want to be clear with the record, as the attorney for the case that's coming, they did not have everything ready for this case. Therefore, it was based upon them. That's why, but the mailers and everything were already out. So that's why we still had to come to this case and have to pull it. I just want to be clear to preserve the record always.
Yes.
Thank you.
So what would the suggestion be for us to have that stricken from the record as a
That's
testimony?
one approach. You could also just weigh it accordingly and move on.
Okay. I don't know that you were here to talk about this one that we're looking at.
I don't
Correct.
believe so, because the one I'm talking about is the one on Old Palafox in
Right.
between
Okay.
Kenmore.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just kind of take.
Chairman,
Board's lead.
motion to strike a testimony.
All right, we got a motion to
presented.
strike. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All right, so we'll strike that, and then we'll have you back for that case next month, and
Okay.
should get another mailer. Is that correct? Okay.
All right. Well, thank y'all so much.
Yes, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next speaker is Mika Johnson. If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, sir. Good morning. My name is Mika Johnson. My address is 828 Tina Avenue. We have family property within that area.
Okay, and I'll have you get sworn in real quick. Sorry.
Yes.
Affirm the testimony about to give in this case, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes. Okay, we, similar to the lady that left, she was saying, I've been in this area for 30 some odd years. My family's been in there for maybe 48 and the area, and the traffic is bad. We would like to see more housing there in the area. We don't want to see industrial coming. We don't need any more traffic. We don't need any more pollution. We need some retail and professional services for our elderly that are right there. We got a lot of them 70-plus years old, and they already can't get out of their neighborhoods and get across Highway 29. God forbid they try to do get across Palafox when you're coming down Kenmore to take that shortcut to just go as far as my neighbor said yesterday, I can't even go to TJ Maxx without going all the way down and going and catching a light and doing this. So we kind of, we kind of covet that little area. And especially when they're taking grandkids to West Florida, which used to be Woodham High School. We're a little sick of change. We don't mind it, but can we go into change that is going to benefit everybody in the neighborhood, not just the commercial and corporations? Last time I was here, and I'm told we do not want storage again. I've run out so many people that wants the Florida dream and want to live in a storage unit. And I came before the board before they put that one there on Highway 29, and he said, I'm going to clean it up. I forgot my picture to show you how many times I had to go out there and pick up trash. And, everybody, I just would like the commissioners to understand and look at the people who live there and been there for a long time. We welcome everybody, but we've been here a long time. We've been picking up trash. We've been picking up stuff. Before the homeless population, we were helping addicts and trying to get them rehabilitated and doing things. But now all it comes in is commercial and nothing that's beneficial to the people that's been here a long time. So we'd like to see some doctors. We thank Sacred Heart for putting the urgent care. But we don't need another storage unit over there. We need some housing so our children can come and work and live closer to us as we age. And they could go drive over to Navy Federal and then come by and stop and bring me something on the way back. I hadn't gotten there yet, but I anticipated, and that's my son. He has to come through the neighborhood because we lost 3 men that's been long-standing residents in our community. So he has to be able to come through there too and help them until they go on to glory. Now, once they go to glory, then we'll do whatever, okay? But thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. Board, do we have any questions for staff or the applicant at this time? And I'll just ask again, with this request that they've asked to go to commercial instead of the HCLI, that prohibits storage units in the commercial setting, correct?
let's look up the uses. I don't want to speak off
Okay.
record. I think warehouses are still in.
Warehouses or maintenance facilities.
Yes, they are still. If you can, if you go to the code, and that's the thing. Even with commercial, it does allow for more intense uses. But again, the code does allow for that to be considered as an alternative. But the compatibility, the single-family homes, the close proximity, all of those things are factors as well that still may have that still need to be considered. And even with, I'm just trying to lay all the facts out for you, because this was even a little tedious for staff. Even with the high-density mixed use, category, it does allow for similar type uses that are in the commercial allowance. But what it does for high-density mixed use, it basically eliminates the sites where, basically, if someone would have to, if they want a high-density mixed use, and if that use is allowed for it, they could have conditional use approval in which that use could come before the Board of Adjustments, and they can see, the neighbors can see the type, the size, and the square footage. But that's what, it'll be much more specific with high density. But the uses are very similar, the existing, but the size component isn't factor. And that's where the commercial allows. There's no specific size component. So I want to lay all the facts out for you. But again, staff does recognize that HDMU, the transitional zoning, is commercial. That's why staff said that could be a better alternative if the board decide to go in that direction. Well, understand the compatibility is still an issue if you look at the existing land use map. It's predominantly a residential development pattern, high density mixed use development pattern. Yes, you do have limited commercial uses out there. You have to really, really drive it to see it limited, but within that specific close proximity, that's the issue for staff is yet the compatibility. As Ms. Allison did a good job in her case explaining that.
All right, board, any questions for staff or the applicant?
Yes, may I just cut to the chase? I understand we have to keep in consideration all the possibilities, but can I just ask what the impetus was for the change from the applicant to go to HCLI and why commercial would mollify you as opposed to HDMU?
So as I understand, the owner, Mr. Lister, is elderly, 90-something years old, and in relatively poor health, and has been trying to sell the business for quite some time. Has had several interested purchasers of the property looking to do a similar operation. It's been a drywall company. I think I may be misspeaking. I want to say plumber, but I could be making that up. However, because of the zoning and concerns over the zoning, the deals fell through. And so they're seeking to have it, they wanted to go to HCLI because they thought it would be an appropriate fit given that it's adjacent to the HCLI. However, after staff's comments that commercial would be more appropriate, they've elected to seek commercial zoning. There are no plans at this time that I'm aware of to do any storage facility or anything like that. I would just remind the board that while I appreciate Mr. Jones' comments regarding compatibility, staff's findings and analysis, I mean, even the last sentence itself, staff recommends commercial zoning for the subject area. Throughout the findings, staff recommends commercial as a more appropriate zoning category. One of the neighbors, Ms. Nika Johnson, when she spoke, commented the need for retail and professional services, which are allowed in commercial zoning. Any concern about property values going down While I'm not an appraiser, you know, my understanding of property value would be that commercial zoning would actually increase, not decrease, property values. They would have to meet, again, performance standards. And if you'll go back to the existing land use map, while the county references the residential, multifamily, and single-family dwellings, surrounding in the red, that's all commercial. And then this site, on both sides, there's commercial. The two single-family, those are part of the properties being rezoned. I mean, that's part of this owner. So those homes that are SF in the blue are not impacted other than, I mean, that's, you know, my client's property. And then you've got commercial on both sides. It's existed as a commercial development for, you know, quite some time. And so we're just asking to make the zoning align with the use for, you know, marketability and for, you know, my client's wish to maximize his property rights.
All right. Any further questions for staff or applicant? If not, I'll accept a motion for this case.
Make a motion to approve zoning as requested for commercial.
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries. All right, next we'll go to the rezoning application for consideration, case Z-2025-11, which requests rezoning of 5700 Highway 99 from Agricultural District 1 dwelling unit per 20 acres to RR Rural Residential District 1 dwelling unit per 4 acres, as requested by Meredith Bush, the agent for Clint W. Parker and Rachel Parker, the owners. Board members, have there been any ex parte communication between you and the applicant, of the applicant's agents, attorneys, or witnesses with fellow planning board members or anyone from the general public prior to this hearing? Have you visited the subject property? And please also disclose if you are a relative or business associate of the applicant or the applicant's agent.
No to all.
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 All right. And staff will have you go ahead and present the photographs.
Allison Lindsay, Development Services. This is the rezoning request Z 2025-11, requesting from agricultural to rural residential. This is the location map showing the location on Highway 99, just south of Molino. This is the 500-foot radius zoning map showing the agriculture as a current zoning and the surrounding parcels or RR and ag. This is the future land use of rural community. This is the aerial photo of the subject property. And this was the public hearing sign that was posted along Highway 99. This is looking onto the subject property from Highway 99, looking north along Highway 99. This is a photo looking south along Highway 99. Looking west across Highway 99 from the subject property, and that's all the maps and photography.
All right. Thank you very much. And Meredith, I'll have you go ahead and come on up. And if you would, just go ahead and give your rundown of this case for us.
Thank you. Do we have speakers on this case?
We have one.
In this case, slightly different than the last one, staff is recommending approval. However, I will go through the criteria. As to criteria 1, consistent with the comprehensive plan, the proposed rezoning from ag to rural residential RR is consistent with the Escambia County Comprehensive Plan and the Rural Community Future Land Use Designation. The RC category recognizes small-scale settlements and crossroads communities that provide housing and limited services to the surrounding agricultural and rural areas. The RR district directly implements this policy framework by allowing a balanced mix of low-density residential and agricultural uses. As to criteria 2, consistent with zoning district provisions, the proposed RR zoning district is consistent with the purpose and intent of Section 3-2.3 of the Escambia County Land Development Code. The RR district is expressly designed to allow a mix of single-family homes on larger lots while continuing to preserve agriculturally productive lands. The RR district is expressly intended to provide transitional areas between agricultural and low-density residential lands. The subject property, approximately 20 acres, possesses the size, access, and existing use pattern appropriate for RR designation. Its location along Highway 99, a collector roadway serving Molino and surrounding communities, supports limited expansion of the RR district to provide a modest increase in residential opportunities. Number 3, compatible with surroundings. The proposed RR zoning is compatible with the surrounding land uses and zoning designations, which include a mix of agricultural, rural residential, and rural mixed-use properties. The area is characterized by low-density residential homes, pastures, and small-scale agricultural operations, all of which will remain viable under the proposed district. The introduction of additional single-family residential lots on rural-scale parcels will reinforce Molino's community identity and sustain local institutions such as schools, volunteer services, churches, and small businesses by modestly increasing population density in a manner consistent with existing development patterns. Number 4, appropriate if spot zoning. The requested rezoning does not constitute impermissible spot zoning. The property is within close proximity to other RR zoned parcels and forms a natural extension of the existing rural settlement pattern along Highway 99. Even if viewed as a spot zone district, the rezoning would be transitional in nature, providing an appropriate buffer between agricultural lands and the more developed residential areas of Molino. Therefore, the rezoning represents a rational and predictable refinement of the zoning map, consistent with the comprehensive plan's rural community hierarchy. And 5, appropriate with changed or changing conditions. The Molino area has experienced incremental residential growth and community investment, signaling gradual change consistent with Escambia County's strategy for reinforcing designated rural centers. Highway 99 has become a modest rural corridor serving existing homes, churches, and small agricultural and service operations. The area has experienced incremental RR rezonings and rural home construction consistent with RC policies. The rezoning will not require extension of new public infrastructure and thereby will avoid sprawl. Again, staff's findings supports our request, so we would ask that you rezone to RR.
All right, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? All right, staff will have you go through your presentation.
Okay, this is the rezoning at 5700 Highway 99. Future land use is rural community. The request is from agricultural, which is 1 dwelling unit per 20 acres, to rural residential, which is 1 dwelling unit per 4. So criteria A, consistent with the comprehensive plan. The proposed rezoning to rural residential is consistent with the rural community, the RC future land use category. The RC allows 2 units per acre, while RR district limits density to 1 unit per 4 acres, preserving the low-intensity rural pattern. In accordance with the Comp Plan Future Land Use 3.1.4, the request remains compatible with the RC Future Land Use designation and supports residential development at densities appropriate for rural areas. The criteria is consistent. The criteria for consistency has been met, and that the transition from agricultural to rural residential zoning supports the protection of rural and agricultural land while allowing limited residential use in alignment with the comprehensive plan. The RR district is intended to function as a largely self-sustaining rural area characterized by detached single-family homes on large lots, consistent with limited infrastructure and the rural land use pattern. The district also accommodates essential public facilities and compatible non-residential uses that serve the rural population and maintain agricultural community character. Criteria B, consistency with the Land Development Code. The proposed amendment to RR designation is consistent with the LDC regarding allowable uses and densities. However, according to the county's GIS system, the property contains prime soils across its entirety. Pursuant to LDC Chapter 3, Section 3-2.3E, new or expanded uses must be cited to avoid the conversion of prime farmland. Where avoidance is not feasible, impacts are limited to 5 acres or 10% of the development parcel, whichever is greater. For the 20.28 plus or minus acre parcel, this standard allows disturbance of up to 5 acres, as 10% of the parcel, which would be 2.03, is less than the allowable density of the zoning. An environmental assessment will be required before consideration of the site development approval through the development review process. Additionally, in a memo dated November 13th, 2025, the Transportation and Traffic Division comments that the Highway 99 parcel has 2 bike lanes, number of lanes 2, bike lanes none, and there's no the county improvement plan. There's no street classification improvements at this time, and the TTO had no concerns regarding the proposed rezoning. Compatible with surrounding uses. The proposed amendment is compatible with the existing land uses in the surrounding area. Properties around the area are designated as agricultural, rural residential, and rural mixed use, and are developed with single-family residence, mobile homes, and some vacant. The requested RR zoning is consistent with the established residential pattern, and it supports the prevailing large lot development characteristics of the area. Spot zoning. The RR designation would not constitute spot zoning. The adjacent parcels to the east and north are already zoned rural residential, and the parcels immediately south are zoned agricultural. Applying the rural residential district to the subject property would provide an appropriate transition land use buffer between the surrounding districts. Criteria E, appropriate with changed or changed conditions. The land use conditions and patterns in the Molino area have changed over time. Recent increases in residential development within Escambia County have prompted applicants to request rezoning to rural residential, which allows a density of 1 dwelling unit per 4 acres. The proposed RR designation would provide a logical transition between the adjacent RR, RMU, and agricultural zoning districts. Existing developments in the area are predominantly consist of large lot residential uses while supporting agricultural activities. The RR district, with its established permitted uses, density standards, and development intensities, is consistent with these existing patterns and would integrate seamlessly within the current land use framework of the Molino area. And that concludes staff's findings.
All right, do we have any questions for staff? All right, we'll move on. We do have one public speaker, Matt Crosby. If you'll please come forward and state your name and address for the record and be sworn in.
Yes, Matt Crosby, 5500 Highway 99, Molino, Florida.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. Hey, so just want to express my concern for the zoning. If we can go back to look at the map here, my property is located just south of this in the yellow, previously zoned a VR3 zoning designation, which allowed for 1 dwelling unit per 2 acres. I want to note where his property is, a subject property that's slated for rezoning. Across the street is now owned by Escambia County. It is the 4-H Agricultural Extension Center. So the findings for me to be consistent with a RR zoning for a 1 dwelling unit per 4 acres could impact the county's position here going forward as far as off-site adverse impacts, such as noise from agricultural activities that occur there, whether it be lighting, whether it be noise. You put more residents in that area, you could create more problems. For me, I look at the parcels to the south, currently zoned ag. Each house there is 3 residents. Each house is on 20 acres. There's no density there developed. The other Our property surrounding it is viable farmland, currently been farmed. So is this subject parcel today is currently being farmed. They do this every year. It's always been it. We see a trend here now with people coming up, buying these 20-acre parcels, wanting to put in these hobby farm lots for development and profit. So what we're doing is we're losing valuable agricultural properties in the Molino area. There is enough slated development from Highway 196 south to Kingsfield, 1,400 acres there to provide residential zoning, multifamily residential. We don't need to promote urban sprawl by having these hobby farm lots pop up, get developed all over the place, right? So the county has already denied Thomas Henry, big 1,400 acre parcel north end of the county for these hobby farm lots. Will it be developed? I'm sure, right, guys? I mean, at the end of the day, development will occur and get there. I just think now is not the right time for that. You know, again, going forward, this property that the county had at some point in time when they acquired it was zoned VR3, same as mine. It allowed for 1 dwelling unit per 2 acres, right there on Chalker and Highway 99. So that had density, right? The county acquires this property, turns it into the 4-8 Ag Extension Center. They apply to rezone it. So they remove the density, right? VR3, 1 dwelling for 2 acres. The county decides it's in its best interest and it's compatible with the surrounding land use to change it and rezone it to agricultural use for the county 4-H Extension Center. This parcel is directly across the street from the county's, or this subject parcel in question for rezoning. So the county at some point when they acquired that property thought it was the best suited use would be agricultural. So they rezoned it for that. You know, that's my expression and my concern. Obviously the infrastructure needs to grow there. There's 4-inch flushing hydrants that run up and down 99. There's no 8-inch lines there for that. Fire safety becomes a concern, but more or less, obviously the more people that get up there on these hobby farm lots, especially across from the Extension Center, could create and possess a problem for the county for that 4-H Agricultural Extension Center. Do y'all have any questions for me, or just kind of wanted to present my case and my findings for what I feel may impact the property?
I got a question, Matt. Do you farm up there?
So, no, I do not farm. I currently do farm up there, but I haven't done it in years. So I've got sod planted on my property, currently under agricultural exemption. We've cut that sod twice now. But other than that, no. I mean, I live at 5500 Highway 99, just south of that. But so you're south of this piece? That's correct. So if you go down, I'm south right there in that area right there. I own 2 parcels there, totaling 13.5 acres. So one being there, and then one being south of that. Just, yeah, go on down right just south of that. Now, if you'll see that if you go back up north, those are 3 parcels right there, all single-family residential, but they're on 20-acre parcels apiece that adjoins the subject property. And then you'll see the Extension Center directly across from the proposed zoning. But yeah.
Any other questions for the witness? Yep.
I don't, maybe not for the witness, but I'm curious if somebody could kind of expand upon that, the GIS findings that the soils are such that it would possibly be a hindrance to somebody doing exactly what he's saying. Somebody came in to do the, what it read like to me that I don't know that you could actually do 1 and 4 acres as the zoning implies, based on the soils. Is that true or not?
I think he's talking about criterion B, the little section you talked about, the environmental. Yeah.
And Matt, you can take a seat if we need to. We'll get you back up here, though. Thank you, though.
Go ahead.
So, ask me your question again. I mean,
So you mentioned in the, it says because the GIS findings, the soils are such that they may have a difficult time basically just going in, just because we, if zoning goes to what is requested, it doesn't necessarily mean that somebody can go in there and build 1 house for every 4 acres based upon the soils. One question. And 2, I guess, would be for Horace. The speaker prior to this mentioned that, you know, across the way at one point, you had it zoned in a residential manner, and now you basically took that zoning out. I'm just curious about why and why you would do that for the extension center, and now we're going back the other way.
all right, so we'll address the soils. So it's 20.28 plus or minus acres. So if they could do, it's one house per 4 acres, as long as they could avoid the prime soil area, even though, you'd still have to, you are limited for the 5 acres. So
it's all prime soils, it states. So what you're saying is they could only probably, it would restrict that construction, is that correct?
yes, for the whole 20 acres. And then as far as I think he said it was V3, I'm not sure, but.
Previous zoning was VR3, villages.
Oh, VR3.
Previous zoning.
So, the Ag Center was VR3, but across the way was VAG1. And so this all changed when we had the 2015 rewrite, and we took the 35 zoning districts and combined them into 14, and then and they also had to match with the future land use at the time too.
So this was VR3, to be correct.
It used to be.
What the Ag Extension Center was on. It was VR3, 100%. I just want to make sure on the record it's correct. What you're saying. That property
Yeah, the extension, correct. The extension used to be VR3. Now,
has now been rezoned to Ag. Correct.
well, we didn't, I don't like to call it a rezoning because we didn't actually rezone it. We just recategorized the classification. Yes. And we had to, and I'm not sure what I didn't look at the future land use was prior to that, but we had to make sure that whatever the.
It is ag, yes.
Yes.
All right, do we have any further questions for staff or the applicant at this time? All right. We do not have any further speakers for this case, so we'll entertain a motion one way or the other, unless we have, I don't know if he was signing up to speak or, no. Ms. Bush, yeah.
I would again remind the board that we're to look at the criteria, and in this case, both staff and applicant has met the criteria. While I appreciate Mr. Crosby's concerns, the county's property being rezoned as part of the countywide rezoning, I don't know that that's relevant. Again, given the soils, the issue with the soils, and the limitation that one dwelling unit per 4 acres, it's not that a huge subdivision or something like that's going to go in the area. And if the, ultimate owners of the property choose to farm in a hobby farm fashion and agriculturally use a portion of their land, that doesn't create an incompatibility with the area. It's my understanding Mr. Crosby himself owned land in the area which was sold for development, and so, any objection to other land in the area being sold for development, I don't know if that's disingenuous or not, but we would just, again, remind the board we've met the criteria and ask that you approve the rezoning.
And if I may, I'm sorry, I was out. I definitely understand Mr. Crosby's concern, and if you recall, there was some limitations. We had a 1 per 20, and that's why when the board said 4 acres in a farming country, you still can respect the surrounding properties, which may be farmland, and you still got the same. If a house on 4 acres, that's pretty much relatable for the protections of existing properties, compatible with the farmland. A house on 4 acres, that's you can't put no commercial. You got, because agriculture uses still got to have, people still got to live there. So that's why 4 acres on a house and still with the protections for agrarian uses, as well as to protect the surrounding farmland. That's why staff recommended that this would be a good choice, because it's 4 acres, one house per 4 acres.
All right, thank you. No, sir. If you were called up for cross-examination, you would be able to, but that was not the case in this time. Board, if you got questions for witness, staff, or the applicant, we can take those at this time. Otherwise, we'll take a motion on this one way or the other.
I appreciate Mr. Crosby's concern, and I do too. This is my district, and I love agriculture. I love the farmers, but our job is to make sure that this meets the criteria. and that's what we have to vote on, and the staff says that it does. They agree. So I motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? All right, motion carries. That was the last item on the agenda for today. Staff, do y'all have anything for the board? Got a meeting on January 6th next month.
Yes, where we should have 2 rezonings, a small scale and an ordinance. And
All
that's
right.
Tuesday, January 6th.
Very good. Anything else? And we stand adjourned.
Uh-huh.